watching the number one podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, and I'm your host, Jean-Paul Leek, and this is Rope Break Family Go Home Show Monday Night Raw WrestleMania 37. Are we excited for WrestleMania? Does it feel like it's the season, for the greatest show, the greatest spectacle, the showcase of the immortals? No, not really, and that's a problem. But, before we get into the review, we just want to say thank you each and every one. This is going to be a busy week, and we really appreciate your support, so, keep it coming, guys. We love all the likes, the comments, the subscriptions, we just really appreciate it, and we just want to thank you. But, the one thing we really can't appreciate and we can't thank WWE for is, the current product and the excitement for WrestleMania. It's not there. It's, just not very good shows. And this Monday Night Raw, it really made you realize how much WrestleMania doesn't feel special anymore. But, let's get into the review. And, of course, the show, it started off with, the main event of night one. It'll be Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. So the first thing we saw tonight was the Scottish Warrior. He came out. Drew McIntyre makes his way to the ring. And, we see replays of McIntyre being attacked by King Corbin and Bobby Lashley last week. So McIntyre says that it's only 5 days until WrestleMania, and he can't help but think about how unique last year's was. Fast forward to now, and he's back in the same position. Drew says whether Lashley likes it or not, their match is happening at Mania, and it'll be the biggest fight of their lives, and he can't wait. McIntyre says his and Lashley's stories are remarkably similar, but they are completely different people. And the biggest difference is the amount that Drew is willing to sacrifice. Unlike Lashley, he's never had the luxury of going home on the weekends. He's been on his grind since he was 22 years old. Drew recounts stories of his mother going through chemotherapy, telling him to not come home, not give up on his dream. If he does, she'll be the one who kicks his ass. So he kept fighting and sacrificing everything. And that's why Lashley can't beat him. And tonight he'll run through Corbin, and then he'll stick his boot in Lashley's face and end the almighty era. So then MVP and Lashley come out. Lashley asks Drew if he's done yet, and everyone is tired of hearing Drew's climb to the top. Unfortunately, only one of them can be on the top, and his time is over. Lashley says Drew was great, but it's the almighty era, and that's all there is to it. Lashley says everyone is afraid of the Scottish Warrior, but last week when he got Drew in the Hurt Lock, he saw fear and he felt him tremble as he passed out. McIntyre asked him to get in the ring and to try it again, but MVP says it's not how this works. This only happens on Saturday, where Drew will lose his dignity, his consciousness, and ultimately the match. McIntyre disagrees and says he will run Lashley down, take his title back, and MVP says that that's a lot of big talk considering how Drew might not even make it to WrestleMania because out comes King Corbin. Corbin says that he started something last week and tonight he will finish it. Corbin tells Drew he needs to come to the grips the fact that he won't be making it to WrestleMania and he won't get near the WWE Championship because tonight he kicks his ass. Lashley, MVP, and Corbin leave as Drew stares on. So, this was a good opening segment. The problem is it feels all kind of forced. It feels like predictable. Wow, even though last year was like, okay, Drew won the Rumble. Of course, he's going to go against Brock. He's probably going to win. He's going to be the new champion. But that's how it's supposed to be. The Royal Rumble winner, main event, wins the title. It's, as the baby face. It's just, you want to see Lashley hold on to the title more. You want to see him out there with the Hurt Business, all four guys, but they split the group up and it just, I don't know. It just doesn't feel special. It just feels so predictable. It's like, okay, Drew's going to win the title back and Lashley's just going to fade away into obscurity. That's just kind of how this feels. And it sucks. And anytime you put King Corbin into something, it brings it down. I'm sorry. He's just not that legit of a character presented on WWE TV. It is what it is. Then when we come back from commercial break, we see Xavier Woods and Kofi there backstage, and up comes Riddle, who starts talking about how big and strong Omos is. Riddle says he's never seen anyone as high as Kofi got last week when Omos tossed him over the barricade. Kofi says he hopes nobody's that high on Saturday. And Riddle asks about Sheamus, and he says he's stinky and then mentions he'll have to deal with Mustafa Ali as well. Riddle rides off, and Kofi asks if he's high, and then he and Woods are high because he's craving cookies. So, I mean, it was funny, when Riddle was like, "Oh yeah, I hope nobody gets that high." But then when Kofi and Woods started, trying to say the same joke, it didn't hit as well. So, that was what it was. And then we see Xavier Woods with Kofi Kingston versus AJ Styles and Omos. And this match, for an opening match, go home show, we're going to see something good. We're going to see something exciting. No, this was absolute shit. They started wrestling a little bit. Kofi says Omos, he calls him out. He says something, throws a microphone at him. The microphone hits Omos in the chest and just explodes. Obviously, gimmick microphone. So then Omos chases Kofi around. A little cause of distraction. Xavier Woods rolls up AJ Styles. 3 weeks in a row. AJ Styles 3 losses in a row going into WrestleMania. If they don't become the champs and they lose, don't be surprised if AJ Styles leaves his company when his contract's up. I don't know when that is. That might be for a while. So maybe I'm just blowing smoke. But, they haven't done anything legit with AJ, and it's been a shame. And then we see Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. They arrive at the arena in a $3 million or whatever Bugatti, and then they get out and then they march through the arena. So then when we come back from another commercial break, we see Braun Strowman. He comes to the ring where a cage is set up, and we see a long video package chronicling the entire feud between him and Shane. Strowman said he had to deal with bullies his whole life, people who had preconceived notions about who he is and what he's about. Shane did it, coming out here with a fake report card calling him stupid, but he doesn't know what he got himself into. When Shane gets inside the cage and the doors lock, the running ends. Braun's going to destroy Shane, not for himself, but for everyone who's ever been called stupid, told they couldn't succeed, or have been bullied. Shane will be going in a body bag after he gets these hands. So Shane McMahon comes out dancing and smiling, and he says that Braun's so angry he doesn't know why. Shane said he allowed Braun to choose the match type because he wanted to test to see if he's any more intelligent than he was in 5th grade. Well, he has to admit the steel cage was a pretty smart choice. Hell, some would even call Braun the favorite. However, he's not any man, he's a McMahon. And he will outsmart Braun and beat him. And the next day, Braun will have to admit to himself he is really stupid. So out come Elias and Riker, and Braun has to beat them both in a 2-on-1 handicap match next. So again, we get the second match of the show. Not very good. Nobody cares. We've seen it before pretty much. How do you think this ends? Both these guys kind of get, a little bit of offense on Braun. Nothing real crazy. This was really short. Jackson Riker, him and both Elias, they get thrown off of Braun, and then Braun puts them both in the corner and splashes them. Riker eats a running power slam, then Elias does as well, and Braun pins them both at the same time. Nobody cares. I'm sorry. I mean, the match with him and Shane will at least be entertaining, I think. But, this build-up and this feud has just been stupid. This whole let's turn Braun babyface, and it's just not a very good story. Again, everything, the tag team match before this for the titles and this 2 matches on WrestleMania, they don't feel special at all. So then we see John Morrison and The Miz. They're walking backstage with buckets of red paint, and they're stopped and asked what it's for. And they say they are artists and they have a masterpiece to perform. They approach Bad Bunny's Bugatti and they cover it in red paint, writing, "Hey, hey, hop, hop" on the hood and everything. So obviously they're just ruining his white car with the red paint. And back live, Bad Bunny comes around the corner and he finds his car and he's all pissed. He screams in Spanish. Miz and Morrison then attack him from behind. They throw Bunny over the hood of the car and then they drag him across the floor, yell at him that he doesn't respect him and that he will destroy him at WrestleMania. Damian Priest runs up with Adam Pearce and some officials, and Miz and Morrison run off. Then Rhea Ripley is interviewed earlier today about if she can coexist with Asuka. Ripley says she doesn't share strategies in interviews, but tonight she's focused on Jackson Baszler, and if Asuka wants revenge, she can wait until Sunday, and Asuka and Ripley make their entrances. So then we get this match, Asuka and Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax with Reginald. And for most of this match, the story was Rhea was in there and she was kind of just, getting beat up. They're like, "Oh, is she hurt? We don't know what's going on." and she was just kind of selling for the longest time. Eventually, she tags in Asuka, and then again, and she's with Shayna, so she comes in hot. She runs over Shayna, goes to the top rope, but Ripley punches her off. And it's like, oh my God, here we finally, this was at least good because it was the heel turn. So going into WrestleMania, Rhea Ripley's the clear heel, Asuka's the baby face. So I'm fine with that story. So like I said, she punches her off the top rope. And then Rhea grabs Asuka from behind, lifts her up, and then slams her down face first. Ripley puts Asuka back in the ring, and Baszler hits a running knee for the win. So this is good. The match itself was all right. Like I said, Rhea in there selling with Shayna and everything, and Asuka's good. Nia's Nia. She's not very good, but it is what it is. And this I'm actually looking forward to. I think this match will be really good between these two. I mean, I don't think they'll give them as much time and as much, prestige kind of as Charlotte and Rhea had last year, but I still think this will be a really good match at WrestleMania. One I'm looking forward to, and a heel Rhea Ripley as champion, because I feel she's going to win. You can do a lot with that. So it's just, it sucks for Asuka. All her WrestleManias really haven't been that legit. But I mean, hey, it's either you were going to lose to Rhea or lose to Charlotte. So I'd rather see her lose to Rhea than lose to Charlotte again. So then Rhea Ripley, she smiles and shouts at Asuka from ringside, saying she's more than ready, and this is her division now. So then we see a replay of last week where the Hurt Business dissolved. Lashley wrestled Shelton Benjamin and beat him, and tonight he faces Cedric Alexander. MVP is standing backstage, and Shelton and Cedric appear, and Cedric grabs him by the suit and holds him up against a production crate. Cedric says MVP called them embarrassments, but he's nothing more than a washed-up leech who's living off Lashley. Cedric said he might not beat Lashley tonight, but he will leave him with a scar. Shelton tells MVP to keep his crippled ass out of their business, and then Sarah Schreiber appears and asks MVP if he's nervous, and he says of course not. He never worries about Lashley. And then he says Cedric and Shelton are ingrates who wouldn't even wear suits if it wasn't for him. Lashley appears and then shouts at MVP, and then he says that he will break Cedric in half. Like he comes and he's like, oh, what's going on? Who did this? And he's like, no, don't worry about it. It was just those two. And he's like, I'll kick their ass. So then when we come back from commercial break, Baszler, Nia, and Reginald, they're being interviewed backstage. On Sunday, they will have to defend the tag titles against whoever wins the tag team turmoil match on Saturday. Before they can answer, Lana, Naomi appear, then Natalya, Tamina, Mandy, and Dana, Ruby, and Liv, and finally Billie Kay, who says Carmella still reviewing, her resume. And then Nia says that they don't have time for this and leave the four teams all arguing with each other. So there we go. We're not going to see the SmackDown tag team titles on WrestleMania, but we're going to see this. No offense to the women, but I think seeing the SmackDown tag titles, which hopefully the Mysterios will win, I think that would have been a better story, a better heartfelt moment to have on WrestleMania than these women's tag titles, which, let's be honest, nobody's cared about them since Bayley and Sasha held them. So then we see Bobby Lashley and MVP. They make their way to the ring. We see a long video package of the entire Lashley McIntyre Miz feud, everything. And then Lashley faces Cedric Alexander after the break. But before it can begin, Shelton and Alexander, they jump Lashley. They start beating him down. They force Bobby to the corner. He tries fighting back, but they continue battering him. He eventually knocks Cedric back, then knees Benjamin a few times and throws him from the ring. And then the referee calls for the bell. So this was really good. I think this was better than Shelton Benjamin's showing against Lashley because this time, the two, I guess you call them former members of the Hurt Business, but now baby faces, they jumped him, beat him down. So that kind of gave Cedric more of an advantage in this match. And Cedric had a really good showing, I thought. Even you could see MVP wasn't really worried, but just his, visuals, like in his face, his expression on his face. Sometimes when Cedric was getting a lot of offense, dives to the outside, enziguris, using his speed to take advantage on Lashley. MVP was a little bit like, okay, not worried, but a little bit like, what the hell's going on here? Come on, Lashley, just finish him. So, like I said, Shelton, Cedric, he drops him and then lands two suicide dives against Lashley on the barricade. And then back in the ring, Cedric hits an enziguri, and then he goes up top, hits a missile drop kick for a 2 count. Cedric forearms Lashley a few times, but then gets shoved to the apron. Alexander attempts a rope-assisted DDT, but Lashley catches and slams him with a huge spine buster. Then Lashley hits a rollout dominator and then whips him into the ropes for another spine buster. Lashley applies the hurt lock, and Cedric taps out, but Lashley doesn't release it. He just keeps holding it, really laying it in there. So then after the match, Shelton rushes in to try to stop Lashley, but he gets slammed. Lashley applies the hurt lock to Shelton and tosses him aside. MVP comes in and puts the title on Lashley. So pretty good showing for these guys. I wish they had a better match, something, for them at WrestleMania. This is Shelton and Cedric I'm talking about, because just being in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on SmackDown it's just disrespectful to these guys. It's disrespectful to almost everybody in that match, but that's a whole different thing. We'll be talking about that on the WrestleMania edition of SmackDown. So then we come back for commercial break. Tomorrow is the Hall of Fame ceremony. It will air on Peacock, so they're just kind of showing that off and everything. Okay, just everything for this busy week. Then we have NXT 2 nights, all this stuff. And then we see a video package of Randy Orton and the Fiend feud, and the two of them will face off on Sunday night. So then Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, they come to the ring. Priest says Miz and Morrison crossed the line tonight. It's all because Bad Bunny is a music icon and they're yesterday's news. And he says that Miz is a clown who couldn't hold on to the title for more than a week. And Priest says it's easy to beat up a man 2-on-1. So how about they even the odds and make it a tag match at WrestleMania? Bunny nods along. Bunny says that he came to WWE believing in his dreams and because he loves the business. He used to watch all the shows, every pay-per-view, and it's given him a lot of good memories. But now he doesn't know how to feel or think. He came to WWE to perform, to do his job, and he was grateful for the opportunity. And he says for some reason, The Miz hasn't respected that since day one. And he keeps going on about, how they disrespected him and how he used to respect The Miz and all this stuff. He went on too long. And of course, they're not going to interrupt him. He's a big merch mover. He's a celebrity. So they're not going to be like, cut this guy's mic. He's being bullshit. But they did eventually send out Miz and Morrison. They appear on the screen standing in a limo outside. They sarcastically applaud him. And then the Miz tells him he doesn't belong. Mrs. WWE is their world and he's overstayed his welcome. They're going to embarrass him and they accept the tag team match. Miz and Morrison tell him a limo is a real way to travel and they leave the arena. So then Mustafa Ali is walking backstage when Sheamus stops him, and Sheamus says Ali needs to know something about Riddle. Ali says he doesn't care. He knows Riddle is everything he hates about WWE, and he says Riddle is to blame for the downfall of Retribution, and he's going to set things straight. Sheamus says they have one thing in common, a hatred for that idiot. We get this match. And, to comment on the Bad Bunny thing, I'm glad they made it a tag match. So we see Damian Priest on WrestleMania. We reported it was going to be a tag match for the longest time. So now we're finally seeing that. And this whole Ali, just having this match with Matt Riddle again, this is what the third, fourth time we're seeing these guys go at it. We knew this match didn't mean anything. We knew Sheamus is obviously going to challenge him at WrestleMania. This is Matt Riddle for the United States Championship. Wasn't going to be, let's make this a triple threat. Let's make it interesting. No, nothing like that. Not that that would even make it more interesting, but it's like, why does Ali, even care? Oh, he's the downfall of Retribution. No, the downfall of Retribution was shitty creative, bad booking, and just nothing to do with this group. You didn't feud them with anybody legit. You didn't do nothing with them. That was the downfall. Honestly, the downfall was when Mustafa Ali became the leader, when they were leaderless and just running around and, doing what they were doing, causing havoc, just jumping in random matches, destroying the ring. That's when they actually felt a little bit special. But then when Ali became the leader and they were just, wrestling random matches and, got drafted to Raw, that's when the downfall really started. So like I said, then this goes into the match Riddle versus Mustafa Ali, and Sheamus is on commentary. I mean, like I said, this was what it was. It was good. I can't take away the talent of these two guys in the ring, but yeah, like I said, it didn't mean anything. You knew Sheamus was gonna he's the challenge Riddle. You knew Ali wasn't gonna win. There wasn't gonna be no beatdown, nothing crazy like that. So at the end of this thing, Riddle lands some kicks and a Broton, and then he goes for the pin, but Ali counters with a submission. Riddle transitions from the submission into a fisherman buster and a near fall. Riddle quickly takes a triangle choke,
but then Ali gets his feet on the ropes. Ali snaps Riddle neck first onto the ropes before connecting with a suplex for a 2 count. Riddle fights up, kicks Ali to the corner. Ali knocks Riddle back and then hits a springboard DDT, but Riddle catches him, turns it into a Bro Derek for the win. So after the match, Sheamus stands on the announce desk and shouts at Riddle, who holds up the United States Championship, and taunts him. So like I said, good match between these guys. You can't take nothing away from them. Unfortunately, it was meaningless because, I feel almost all the matches on go-home shows are meaningless for WrestleMania. It's mostly about the promos. Let's have this feel special. Sometimes the matches can do a little something, but when they're like this and all the previous matches we've seen on the card, I mean, the Cedric one was good, and this one was good, but, just the Braun Strowman and then the first tag match we got, just not very good. And so far, like I said, this just really doesn't feel special. Let me see Drew McIntyre. He's interviewed backstage, and he asks if he's worried about Corbin. Drew says, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and you'd think that someone with a huge head like Corbin would be smarter than to challenge him. Drew says nobody likes Corbin, and he'd step on his own grandmother to get to the main event of WrestleMania. But tonight, he stops him in his tracks, and that match is next. So when we come back from commercial break, Drew McIntyre comes to the ring and announces the rundown for the WrestleMania card. Bobby Lashley's backstage watching a monitor as King Corbin comes to the ring. Lashley asked about whether or not he has a preference for who he faces at WrestleMania, and he says he isn't concerned about who he faces. Lashley says Drew is going to put the almighty beating on him, and on Saturday night, that's not going to be hard to do after he puts his ass to sleep. So then we see Drew McIntyre versus King Corbin. They gave this was, a really long match. It surprised me. I'm thinking a main event already. We got, over 20 minutes. But this match was mostly dominated by Corbin. It was, which was surprising. Lots of offense by Corbin. Drew would, hit his belly to belly suplexes, the overheads, get a little bit of offense, but then Corbin would stop it. Or, and see MVP was on commentary. He was like, oh, hi, Drew. Hey, trying to get into Drew's head, but not really causing a distraction. It was just, they're really putting Corbin over in this match, having him look really good. And, kind of skipping ahead here a little bit. Corbin, he's, getting frustrated at Drew. He can't put him away. He keeps kicking out. And he looks for the out and in clothesline again, but McIntyre catches him with a spine buster for a 2 count. McIntyre looks for the future shock DDT again, but Corbin counters with a sidewalk slam for another 2 count. MVP stands up. He shouts at Corbin, and he says, if you want to go to WrestleMania, you don't need to beat Drew. He's like, you just need to, you just need to hurt him. So then Corbin, he lifts Drew McIntyre, but he gets hit with the future shock, but he kicks out. McIntyre drags himself to the corner and scales the buckles, but Corbin hits him. Corbin then hits a superplex for a near fall. They both climb to their feet, trade shots, and McIntyre hits the ropes, but he gets caught with a deep 6 for a near fall. Then MVP, he throws him his cane, and he's like, just take him out. So then, Corbin, he goes to hit him with the cane. Drew ducks out of the way, hits the ropes. You know what's coming. Boom, Claymore kick, 1, 2, 3. So the winner, Drew McIntyre. This was pretty good. Like I said, Drew's great. They made Corbin look good, and Corbin's not a bad wrestler. The only thing is just his character and the way he's been presented on WWE TV this entire run, not just as King Corbin, but Baron Corbin, everything. He hasn't felt special. So why would he feel special now? You know what I mean? It's not, his push isn't organic. He's still the same character. He's not turned face, even though I don't think he can play a face. But you don't do anything with him to change him up to make him feel special. You're just like, oh yeah, he's a loser one week, and oh, now he's almost beating, the former WWE champion. So it just doesn't make sense. But after the match, MVP walks to the ramp, and out comes Bobby Lashley. The WWE champion stands on the ramp, and he cracks his knuckles as McIntyre stands on, and they stare at each other as this ends Monday Night Raw. So there it is. There's the go-home show. What really felt special on this, besides just, some of the promos? Obviously, the opening promo by McIntyre was fantastic. Lashley's rebuttal coming out, everything was good as well. We saw some good matches. The Ali-Riddle match was good. Cedric and Lashley had a good showing. And this match was good, but like I just said, Corbin doesn't feel special. That just felt really forced. You could have had, instead of Corbin, this could have been Shelton Benjamin, or it could have been Cedric last week, had a good showing against Drew. Then this week could have been Shelton. And then, maybe after Lashley loses the title at WrestleMania, then that maybe causes the kind of cracks to really form in the Hurt Business. But, splitting them off now, doing it the way they did, that really took away from this feud, at least for me. So I don't know. And then the Bad Bunny promo went on too long. I'm glad they made it a tag match. I don't care anything about the women's tag match or anything at WrestleMania. I am excited Rhea Ripley's heel. So there is a little bit of good stuff going on here, but not a lot. It's mostly bad. And also, speaking of bad, don't even get me started on the Raw tag team titles. So, this was Monday Night Raw. I don't think SmackDown's going to be much better. The WrestleMania edition, I don't think it's going to be that great. But, join us for that, family. But, let me know in the comments. Am I being too harsh, or do you guys agree? This doesn't feel special. This doesn't feel like WrestleMania. Let me know what you guys think. Give us your predictions also for some of these big Monday Night Raw matches that are going to be taking place at WrestleMania. And thank you all so much for watching. And we will see you next time with NXT.